The weight of waiting. There is a moment almost everyone knows. You look at your salary, you look at your dreams, and a quiet voice says, maybe next year. Maybe when the raise comes. Maybe when things get easier. And so you wait. You wait for the big opportunity, the big bonus, the big change that will finally set you free. Today, I want to tell you why that waiting is the very thing keeping you trapped, and how a quiet philosophy from Japan called Kaizen has helped ordinary people on ordinary salaries build extraordinary freedom. Not through luck. Not through a sudden windfall. But through something so small, you might miss it if you blink. Let me tell you about a man named Hiroshi. Hiroshi worked in a small parts factory outside Osaka. His salary was modest, enough to live on, not enough to dream on. Every month, after rent and food and small necessities, there was almost nothing left. He used to look at his co-workers, who seemed to be waiting for the same thing he was: a promotion, a lottery ticket, a miracle. But Hiroshi's grandfather, an old rice farmer, once told him something he never forgot. He said, "A field is not filled by rain. It is filled by grains, one at a time, placed with care." Hiroshi didn't understand it then. He understood it years later, when his small, unglamorous habits had quietly become a life he no longer needed to escape from. This is the heart of Kaizen, the philosophy of continuous, small improvement. Not radical change. Not dramatic sacrifice. Just 1%, applied without stopping. Imagine a bowl of rice. One grain means almost nothing. You could drop it and never notice. But rice is never eaten one grain at a time. It is eaten by the spoonful, the bowlful, built grain by grain into something that sustains you. Money, Kaizen teaches, works the same way. A single dollar saved feels meaningless. But a dollar, placed with intention, every single day, without stopping, becomes something that can carry the weight of a life. Here is what most people miss. They believe transformation must look dramatic to be real. They wait for the moment they can save a large amount, invest a large amount, change everything at once. And because that moment rarely comes, they do nothing at all. Kaizen rejects this entirely. It says, do not wait for the big moment. Create the small one today and repeat it tomorrow. Why does this work when willpower alone fails? Because 1% does not frighten the mind. A demand to save half your salary triggers resistance. The mind protects comfort, and comfort wins. But a demand to save one small amount, to skip one small expense, to move one small step, this the mind accepts. And what the mind accepts, it repeats. What it repeats, it no longer questions. Slowly, the small action stops being a discipline and becomes simply who you are. This is where real financial freedom is quietly built, not in a single leap, but in identity rewritten one grain at a time. So how did Hiroshi actually apply this on a normal salary in ordinary life? He built his freedom around 3 simple rules. The first rule was the 1% saving rule. Each month, he did not try to save a large sum. He simply increased his savings by a tiny amount, sometimes just a few hundred yen more than the month before. It felt like nothing. But nothing, repeated for years, becomes something enormous. He was not chasing a number. He was building a habit that could not be broken by a hard month, because it never asked too much of him. The second rule was the 1 expense review. Once a week, Hiroshi looked at just one expense, not his entire budget, which felt overwhelming, but one single thing. A subscription. A convenience purchase. A small habit. He asked only, "Does this still serve me?" If not, he removed it. 1 expense, 1 week, without stopping. Over a year, this alone quietly reshaped how he spent. The third rule was the small investment ritual. He did not wait until he had enough to invest because enough never arrives on its own. Instead, whatever small amount was left, he moved it, consistently, into something that could grow. Not a large amount, not a risky amount, just a small, steady placement, made without emotion, without waiting for the perfect market or the perfect month. None of these three rules asked Hiroshi to be extraordinary. They only asked him to be consistent. Years later, Hiroshi was not rich in the way people imagine on television. But he had something rarer. He had space. Space to say no to work that drained him. Space to help his aging parents without panic. Space to breathe, because money was no longer a daily emergency. His coworkers, the ones still waiting for the big moment, were exactly where they had been years before. Still waiting. Still hoping the miracle would arrive before the exhaustion did. And here is the quiet truth Hiroshi came to understand. The people who wait for a large change often receive nothing, because they are waiting for something that does not require them to begin. But the people who apply 1 small percent, without stopping, eventually wake up and realize the mountain has already been climbed, not in one dramatic leap, but in 1,000 small, patient steps they almost didn't notice taking. You do not need a bigger salary to begin. You do not need the perfect month, the perfect plan, or the perfect amount. You only need 1 small grain, placed today, and another tomorrow. If this way of thinking moves something in you, consider subscribing to Will and Wisdom, so more of these quiet philosophies can find you when you need them. And if you have your own small step you are ready to begin today, write it in the comments. Sometimes saying it out loud is the first grain of rice. In our next video, we will explore another timeless principle, one that Japanese craftsmen have used for centuries to master not just money, but life itself. Until then, begin small, begin today, and do not stop.